Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to first welcome everyone to our Wildfire Awareness Week news conference. I'd like to start off by first introducing the director of CAL FIRE, our Chief Pimlott. Chief Pimlott's been with our department for over 25 years, has fire emergency response experience. He's held key leadership positions throughout our department, and I'd like to go ahead and welcome him to the podium and have him provide some remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Larkin. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today in Fresno County, certainly with Millerton Lake as the backdrop. It's been a busy week for the country. I think we've all been watching the news. Not only the fire service, but the entire nation suffered a tremendous loss on 9/11. This year marking the 10th anniversary of those devastating attacks, we are deeply grateful for the U.S. military who were relentless in their performance of their mission this week. They made us very proud. Through their actions, justice was served, and our nation's resolve to remain vigilant against attacks of terrorism has been strengthened. We must not become complacent in preparing for a response, despite what has occurred this week, either for terrorist attacks or any other emergencies that occur, particularly California's wildfires, as we enter fire season here in 2011. Every year, CAL FIRE answers the calls for over 350,000 emergencies, with over 5,000 of those being wildfires. Wildfires have long plagued California, destroying property and impacting the environment. As we know, with our Mediterranean climate, every day in California has the potential to be a disastrous fire day. The aftermath of these wildfires are often destructive and can result in flooding and other impacts beyond just the burned vegetation and the burned structures. They can also adversely impact our economy. Every year we're asked to make a guess or a prediction as to how bad we think fire season is going to be. I think we all know, those in the fire service know, that it's impossible to predict. Again, goes back to California's Mediterranean climate, the changing weather conditions. Every day has that potential to be a devastating fire season. The truth is, there are many factors that go into making up fire season and impacting the severity. The weather, the climate, the vegetation, the curing of the fuels, all of those things have to do with whether or not we have fires and how severe they become. We know this year California has experienced above normal rainfall and above normal snowpack. We have green vegetation throughout the state. Now, interesting, as we've progressed the state this week, kicking off Wildfire Awareness Week, just to look at the differences across the state as to how the vegetation is changing. Just yesterday, even in the Bay Area and other parts of the Sacramento area, the grass was still more green. It was still green. Now, coming in here to Millerton Lake, as you can see behind me, the grass is well on its way to drying down. So just in the course of a week, and changes in demographics or in changes in location in the state, we're seeing very distinct changes in condition. We're approaching 90 degrees in many areas of the state today and tomorrow. We've had wind over the last week. It has dramatically changed the condition of the vegetation and the fuels to where we're rapidly moving into fire season and burning conditions in many areas. We know there are many areas in the state that may not start fire season as early as normal. We're watching that, and we're operationally preparing as the fuels cure and as the threat increases. But of course we know, as we know from California's climate, it's not a matter of if we have fires, it's a matter of when. While things are still green, while the vegetation is still green, and obviously we're marginal in many areas, including here, but while things are still green and safe is when we need to get out as homeowners and be aggressive in clearing that defensible space around our property. We want to do this before the vegetation dries down. We don't want to start fires by striking rocks with lawnmowers and weed eaters while we're trying to prevent fires or mitigate that. So now is the time. Want to be out there early. If you have questions about whether or not it's safe to do it, make contact with your local fire station, make contact with CAL FIRE or your local fire department and ask those questions to ensure you're doing it safely and properly. This year's public education message is, wildfire is coming. Is your home ready? To aid residents in California with the process, CAL FIRE has launched a new website. It can be accessed at www.readyforwildfire.org. And again, by going to that website, homeowners and property owners can look at information, can review information to make their home more resistant to wildfires and to ensure the safety of their family and prepare them to evacuate early and stay safe during wildfire. Consistent with our message this year is the program Ready, Set, Go. The Get Ready portion of that is, again, prepare your property and your family well in advance of the fire. That's right now. This includes maintaining that 100 feet of defensible space around the property, clearing dry grass, brush, leaves, and other flammable materials away from the home, removing all leaves and needles and other flammable material from the gutters and roof, and again, using fire-resistive building materials which help a home resist flying embers, which often can travel 1 mile ahead of the main fire. The Get Set portion of Ready, Set, Go. Your family should have a disaster plan prepared now, not only for wildfire, but for any disaster. As we know, California is home to earthquakes and many other disasters. The plan should also include 2 ways of evacuation from your property. The time to prepare for this, identifying the things you want to take with you, all of those things is now, before the fire strikes, so you're not having to think about those things when it's time to go. And that takes us to the last piece, the go portion of Ready, Set, Go. Wildfire is very dynamic and can move or change direction very, very quickly. There may not be time for local officials to issue an official evacuation order. When you see the fire, it's time to go. Gather your belongings that you've identified, get in your vehicle, and leave the area as safely and quickly as possible to allow firefighters to safely access your neighborhood and safely protect your property. Since we're asking you as residents and property owners to prepare, I think it's appropriate that we tell you what CAL FIRE and the fire service is doing to prepare for fire season here in 2011. The men and women of CAL FIRE are engaged in our version of spring training, honing our skills to perform the wide range of emergency response duties that we're required to do, not only for fire season, but throughout the entire year. CAL FIRE's nearly 5,000 men and women, the permanent staff, will be bolstered by over 2,000 additional seasonal firefighters for the peak of fire season to fully staff our engines and to prepare for the coming fire season. CAL FIRE trains and oversees over 4,000 inmate firefighters to bolster our firefighting resources throughout the state. They staff over 196 fire crews in 39 conservation camps spread throughout California. CAL FIRE and our cooperating agencies are performing defensible space inspections this time of year as well. You'll see engine companies and inspectors making contact with individual homeowners, helping you understand, again, hands-on, what you need to do to prepare your property and advising you on, again, how to make your defensible space most effective for your property. Our fleet of fire engines, bulldozers, crew-carrying vehicles, and other ground-based equipment have been going through their winter maintenance and are being deployed to fire stations in preparation for being staffed here over the next several weeks. Finally, our aircraft, our fleet of 53 aircraft, air tankers, helicopters, and other support aircraft are completing their maintenance that they go through every year and are being deployed, again, out to air bases across California as we come online with fire season and mitigate the fire threat. It's also important to point out that CAL FIRE does not work alone. California hosts a very robust integrated fire protection system that depends on all levels of the fire service, local government, the state, and our federal partners and the military to combine to provide a very robust response system to meet the needs of California across the state and across the varying impacts from wildfire. Certainly appreciate the media taking interest in being here today. In light of all of the activity and going on historically around the country and the world, the fact that you're here. It's critical that you get this message out to all of your constituents and your viewership area, because without you, we're not able to get to all of the residents of California. This information is critical, and very much appreciate your commitment to being here. With that, I will conclude and turn back over to Chief Larkin.
Yes. Thank you, Chief Pimlott. I just want to take a moment and kind of give you an overview of what's going on here locally. Chief Pimlott talked a lot about us preparing for the upcoming fire activity period here in the state of California and what we're doing here locally. You know, on a local basis, last year we had almost 500 vegetation fires within the county. Of those, about 30% were human-caused fires. And I think that, as the chief said, it's important we get our message out early and we educate the public on how important their role is in preventing fires, and to help work together with us so that we can have a nice, safe, and hopefully a quiet wildland fire activity period this year. But another part of the local responsibility and what we're doing is to get out and talk to those residences and doing a face-to-face inspection on their homes to let them know some areas that they can improve on in their clearances, areas that they may need to do some additional work. And so far this year, we've conducted about 3,700 inspections since February. Last year, we had a little over 4,000 total inspections, and we will be continuing to provide inspections clear into the middle of June. And that'll depend, of course, on the number of personnel we have available to go out and conduct these inspections, and that'll, of course, be based on the amount of fire activity we're having at that time. But it's important for us to get out and talk to the residents, do the face-to-face, and conduct those inspections. As part of our spring training and getting ready for the upcoming season, we'll be staffing 8 engines here within the county on May 23rd. These personnel will start to work on the 16th. They'll go through their full week of training, preparing them for the upcoming wildfire activity period, and they'll go to work on the 23rd. So on that morning of the 23rd, we should have 8 engines fully staffed and ready to respond to calls here locally or throughout the state wherever they're needed. The other thing we're going to be doing is, as the chief mentioned again, working together with our cooperators. It's important that we all have a little time together to practice, and we're going to have a spring exercise which we'll be conducting in the first week of June. And we'll have all of our local fire departments participating together with CAL FIRE in preparing for how we're going to fight wildland fires, kind of going through a simulated exercise and kind of going over the safety components we need to be prepared for the upcoming year. Also, there will be a full training exercise with the local fire department. With the local fire departments and the Fresno Fresno Sheriff's Department. They'll be involved in an exercise in which we'll actually get a chance to practice some of our evacuation, residence notification, things of that nature. So as the activity picks up, we'll be prepared as well with our law enforcement partners for the activity. So that's kind of what's going on locally. And at this point, I'll be more than happy to turn it over to question and answers. And Chief Pimlott or myself, depending on what your needs are, would be happy to answer any questions.